Matchweek 1 started with a bang and served up 10 games in total to cast our eyes over. I don't want a long intro today, let's just dive in and see what happened. It all started on Friday as Liverpool hosted Bournemouth. I think it's quite a good thing that the champions played the opening game, and I wonder if they could make that a little tradition a la Wimbledon if they're going to insist on Friday night football. What wasn't so nice was the trip for the Bournemouth fans. 5 hours back on a coach or car, and if public transport was your method, you would just have to pack it in and get a hotel. But if you did get a car, at the earliest, you're getting home at 3 a.m. Liverpool lined up as expected, while the real surprise with Bournemouth was Bafode Diakite immediately being ready to start. The formation was given as a 4-1-4-1 instead of a 4-2-3-1, with Tyler Adams the sole six and David Brooks on the left with Antoine Semenyo on the right and Marcus Tavernier partnering Alex Scott in the middle. Semenyo on the right was the real innovation here, and it was an inspired choice. But no surprises in the champions team, with new stars Jeremy Frimpong, Florian Wirtz, Milos Kerkez and Hugo Ekitike joining old ones, and I predicted it would be a 3-0 win. What we got, though, was a little bit worrying for the Reds. An early cross by Adrian Truffert on his competitive debut for Bournemouth saw Antoine Semenyo get the right side of Kerkez, but he was stretching and put it over. There was soon the first real controversial refereeing decision of the season as well. Ekitike showed liveliness to beat Diakite to the ball and found Mohamed Salah. Ekitike was now one-on-one with Marcos Senesi, but Salah's ball found the latter. However, the Argentine's tackle bounced off him awkwardly, and then he slapped it like a basketball player and cleared it. VAR said it wasn't deliberate, but he was the last man and very lucky, and I can see why the Liverpool fans weren't happy that it stayed 11v11. Perhaps it was calmer then when a smart McAllister ball came to Ekitike. The Frenchman drove forward, and though Senesi got a foot in it, bounced off him, then off of Ekitike to land perfectly to put him through, and he sent George Petrovic the wrong way to give Liverpool the lead before the break. It's the type of goal where if you concede it in foot champs, you throw your controller out the window. It was smartly taken by Ekitike, though, who I wasn't the most bullish about, to say the least, but was having a lot of fun with directness, and that's exactly what you want from an attacking player. Early in the second half, a nice Kirkes ball found Ekitike, who laid it back to Cody Hakpo, who did an excellent run to draw on defenders and then drove it into the bottom corner. Hakpo is sometimes forgotten about, but that was actually a fantastic goal. I think Bournemouth would have been disappointed to give up that much space, with Tavernier baited like the victim of a YouTube prank. There were four cherries that were close to Hakpo, but he had the time and space to pick his spots. Liverpool, though, as against Palace, were the victims of a counter-attack. Dominic Szoboszlai lost it when coming forward, and Bournemouth showed lethal directness. Alex Scott, who won it, made the short pass to Tyler Adams, who found David Brooks on the left. A ridiculous first-time cross by the Welshman found its way to Antoine Semenyo, who seemed to want it more than Liverpool's defenders. Alisson got a big touch but couldn't keep it out, 2-1. Then Salah looked for Szoboszlai in the box, but only found sub Hamid Traore. He played it onto Semenyo on the break. When I watched this game, the whole time I was thinking pass, with the Cherries 4v2. But when a player has confidence, selfishness is sometimes a virtue. He ran the whole length of the pitch and just put his laces through it, with Alisson rooted to the spot. What a ridiculous goal. However, it feels weird in that situation for Liverpool, who were caught on the break in the Community Shield, to be that lax at the back. Ibrahima Konate was singled out for criticism. He came in towards Semenyo, allowing a free pass to a wide-open Tavernier. But then as Semenyo decided to shoot, he didn't even block him, instead jockeying the Ghanaian the whole time and not looking strong and getting in the way of the ball. However, the Reds got the last laugh. Salah put a ball in that Curtis Jones off the bench tried to get on the end of. Ben Winterburn, the young substitute, tried to head it away, but the story of replacements ended when it bounced off Diakite and came straight to Federico Chiesa. Completely forgotten at Anfield, his signing not even viewed as a waste of money, more a waste of time. The Italian shot wasn't the most cleanly hit, but fell perfectly into the corner. Bournemouth pushed, but in injury time, a Wataru Endo clearance was pounced on by Salah, who looked much more confident than James Hill to get to it. He cut in and found the bottom corner, not too dissimilar from Hakpo's goal. 4-2 to Liverpool, but boy did they find it tough. When Chiesa's goal went in, Arsenal and Man City fans across the country probably let out some four-letter words, but they can take significant umbrage in the fact that the champions look very flawed. So four new Reds started: Ekitike, Wirtz, Frimpong and Kerkez. Two new fullbacks, and one, incidentally, was an ex-Bournemouth player. I said they'd be happy to get 40 million for Kerkez, but wow, Andoni Areola was wily. Knowing his own old boys' flaws, he not only sought to exploit them, but actively targeted them. Kirkez likes to get forward, and that's why Iraola moved Semenyo, his best attacking player, to the right to make sure the Hungarian paid for it. Liverpool were extremely aggressive in the midfield, with the likes of Wirtz, McAllister, and Soberslai all coming forward, plus the fullbacks Kirkez and Frimpong. This led to Virgil van Dijk and Kanate having no support whatsoever. Semenyo beat Kirkez a few times, but on the other end, Jeremy Frimpong was also finding it tough to deal with David Brooks. The first subs came on the hour mark. Kirkez, who had been booked for a lunch on Adam Smith, and Frimpong were subbed for Andy Robertson and Wataru Endo. It's a concern after spending £300 million that your solution when your shiny new 30 million right back needs to be adjusted, that your replacement is the backup midfielder. I don't want to blame Endor for playing badly when he was out of position, especially when that's what Arne Slot was going for anyway. He wanted his fullbacks to play up, and they did, and both the fullbacks were caught out for the first goal. Here's a screenshot. It's time to play. Can you spot Liverpool's fullbacks? All right, folks, we're looking for Andy Robertson and Wataru Endo. Okay, ready? Here they are. Give yourself a point for each you found. So it's 2-1. Then he made another two changes. Joe Gomez and Curtis Jones on for Ekitike and McAllister. Gomez would move into right back, with Endo now up into midfield. Here's a screenshot of the second goal. It's time to play. Can you spot Liverpool's fullbacks? This time we're looking for Joe Gomez and Andy Robertson. Okay, can you spot them? Now, this is a trick question. You can't find Gomez because he's not on the screenshot. I don't even know where he was. He was so far up. He was further up than Salah and everyone else. I kept watching it back, puzzled, and then looking at the timer to make sure he was actually on. What on earth? You can get a point if you spotted Robertson, and everyone gets a point for not finding Gomez. The thing is, though, there's no rule against having attacking fullbacks. It's a good thing in general. But you have to have the defensive midfielder to help cover in that case, unless you're desperate in the last 5 minutes and throwing everything to the wall. This is why Rodri and players like Declan Rice, or even at Liverpool, Jordan Henderson back in the day, are so important. Your fullbacks can come up, your midfielders can come up, but it's very risk for both to do so. I will say they didn't have Ryan Gravenberch, who's normally their man in such situations. But let's look at that first screenshot again. Yes, Endor and Robertson were caught out, but Alexis McAllister and Dominic Soboslai weren't even in the picture, and it all feels very needless to me. Why do that when you're 2-0 up? Why take that risk? Still, though, credit to Bournemouth's attacking players. I'll give Semenyo his deserved flowers, but also want to shout out David Brooks too, who looked really confident in one of the hardest stadiums to play in world football as an away player. But excellent for Semenyo, who played with confidence like a man on a mission. Some Egypt in the stands racially abused him, according to reports, and I don't want to focus on one person when 60,000 people could go without embarrassing themselves too much, especially when such things are criminal matter and he can have his day in court if it was a he. But obviously, what a way to respond if it is true, by rising above it, buckling down, and putting in a fantastic performance. That's not to say that other ways of reacting aren't equally legitimate, just that Semenyo deserves particular credit for being able to mentally put it to one side. I would credit him for his performance anyway, scoring two goals with brilliant confidence, showing really nice positioning to get on the end of crossing, and that solo goal, wow. He made Liverpool's nine-figure back line look very ordinary. Obviously, while I'm on the subject of overcoming non-football adversity, it was an emotional day for the Liverpool players too, who were still playing through grief after one of their teammates died still only a month ago. And it is remarkable for them to dust themselves up and keep going. And you could see the emotion in the fans before the game as well. And Liverpool do need credit for their professional approach to pre season and now this season after that as well. The problem for Bournemouth was that the story of great attack and bad defence was also reversed, and in their case, not because they were tactically overcommitting either. Marcos Senesi, back in the starting lineup, now Dean Huijsen and Ilya Zabanya gone, wasn't strong enough for the first goal, with Hugo Ekiteke getting tackled by him and ending up through on goal somehow. Cody Hakpo drew out all of their players too much for the second goal, as this screenshot shows. How did he score from this position? Someone has to put a boot in, and to be quite frank, it's not good enough. And for the winner, Bournemouth just needed to clear their lines, and instead, youngster Ben Winterburn, making only his seventh senior appearance, went for the same ball as Diakite, and it probably was Diakite's ball, allowing it to bounce awkwardly and fall for Federico Chiesa. Even Salah's goal was very similar to Hakpo's in the defensive laxness. That's without bringing up that Senesi was lucky to be on the pitch after the potential red card incident. It's not as easy to analyse as Liverpool's plight defensively. One was tactics, and one was just a lack of quality. Liverpool's stars showing they had more of it than Bournemouth's downgraded back four. But Liverpool were punished in the Community Shield and only barely got away with it here. Will Arne Slot persist? Craven Birch is coming back, but putting men forward is, after all, obviously a boost to the attack. Perhaps they just think that it's worth conceding the odd goal, the same reaction when a keeper makes a mistake passing it out from the back. But blimey, he really is playing high risk stuff. And at 2-0 with an hour gone, you do think it's time to just see out the win. Arne Slot said that though if the fullbacks were deeper, it could have prevented the second goal. That's also who we are. And that's why you see such a nice game when we see Liverpool. But this is a results business, not an entertainment one. They did get the result here, and it's interesting to see whether Slot tones it down a bit. As for Bournemouth, they'll be happy that their attack looks so strong, especially without Dango Ouattara, who seems to be off. But Andoni Areola will not be delighted by his own defence. In terms of the broader picture, Liverpool looked on shaky ground for reigning champions, but they did get the win. While I don't think anything I saw here was enough to change my opinion that Bournemouth will be fine in mid-table. I predicted a comfortable 3-0 win. Liverpool probably could have had that if they wanted, but instead chose to make things difficult for themselves. All right, we'll go on to Saturday, 12:30. Villa hosted Newcastle. Villa lined up more or less as expected, but Tyrone Mings was preferred to Pau Torres in defence, and Luca Digne was used over Ian Matson. Instead of a 4-1-4-1, their team was given as a 4-2-3-1, with Amadou Onana partnering Boubacar Kamara in defensive midfield, Morgan Rogers on the left, and John McGinn on the right. That meant no room for Doniel Mala. Newcastle played how I expected, with the exception that new signing Anthony Elanga started over Jacob Murphy. This meant Anthony Gordon as the main striker. Newcastle had a great chance when Sandro Tonali put forward a through ball, and Luca Digne's tackle only took out his teammate Mings. Elanga was through, but took it outside, and his effort was saved by Marco Bizzo. There was a small penalty shout when Boubacar Kamara clipped Harvey Barnes in the aftermath, but it wasn't given. A free kick routine led to Gordon having a low-driven shot from the D saved by Bizzo. Early in the second half, a McGinn cross led to a Kamara header straight at Nick Pope. A nice move by Villa led to Wally Watkins having a shot, again straight at Pope. On the break, Ilanga's through ball put Gordon in, but Esri Konsa took him down. The last man, Konsa, was dismissed. Newcastle pressed, but Harvey Barnes fired over in a good position. Another long-ranged effort from Gordon was saved. To be honest, it was tough to find that many highlights to talk about in what was mostly a dull game. In the first half, Villa were nowhere, giving the ball away in midfield and not having a single chance. But they were disciplined in defence, and Newcastle's front three, though having some exciting moments, that's a bit generous, lacked cutting edge. Eddie Howe looked to gain another worry line every time the words Isak, Saga, and Liverpool are mentioned in interviews. But when you dominate the game and don't score, even with a man advantage for 25 minutes, you're going to be in trouble. Ilanga's shot in the first five was the best they had. Really, though, Barnes got a couple of crosses in, and there are a few interesting set-piece routines, but they never really looked like getting past Villa's back line. In the second half, Newcastle on the back foot. Kamara's header was their only bona fide chance, and he maybe could have done better. That changed when Elanga, with his only cutting-edge ball, found Gordon, and Konsa brought him down for a red. Maybe he didn't need to, but even though they were back defending, Villa never really looked uncomfortable. They didn't even make a change in their back line, with Kamara and Amadou Onana happy to help out. It's hard not to bring up Isak when it's so obvious he would have made a big difference. Villa will be worried by the first half performance, but their defensive discipline was impressive, and it's a point with a red card. One more thing about Newcastle.
They put in 27 crosses, but no one was on the end of them. In their last 6 games without Isak, they scored 3 goals from 9.4 xg. Okay, that's enough. I don't think I can make it clearer how important Isak is anyway. I know I spent 10 minutes talking about Liverpool's fullbacks, but there's nothing more to say about this one.
On to the 3 p.m. game, starting with Brighton v Fulham. Brighton lined up exactly as expected, while Ryan Sessegnon wasn't fit to start, meaning Jorge Cuenca partnered Joachim Anderson at centre-back with Calvin Bassey moved to the left. As predicted, Josh King started over Emil Smith Rowe, and Raul Jimenez was preferred to Rodrigo Muniz. Jorginho Rutter had the first chance, a low-driven effort saved by Bernd Leno. A Matt O'Reilly cross led to Kaoru Mitoma heading over. Early in the second half, an impressive drive by Rutter led to him being needlessly fouled by Sander Berger in the box. O'Reilly's penalty was too far for Leno, who went the right way. From a Fulham corner, Brighton broke through, but Yankuba Minte's half volley was fired over. From the Seagulls' own corner, Dunk had a header just into the side netting. Late on, an Emil Smith Rowe drive led to his effort being deflected behind by Jan Paul van Hecker for a corner. From it, in deep injury time, it went deep from a touch from Lewis Dunk, and substitute Muniz did brilliantly as it fell to him to find the bottom corner. It finished 1-1. The first half was much like the first half in Villa Newcastle, boring with one team dominating possession but creating few chances. That was Brighton, but they did get their breakthrough in the second half. It was a really nice drive by Rutter, who has far more pace than Berger. I don't think the Norwegian needed to dive in there. He was always playing catch up, and both Anderson and Cuenca were there. Lovely pen by O'Reilly. It takes a lot to beat Leno from 12 yards if he goes the right way. Brighton should have taken advantage of a break from a Fulham corner. Alex Iwobi was beaten by Rutter in the air, but it bobbled for a bit, allowing both Anderson and Harry Wilson to get back. Minter should have still done better, but Fulham did scamper back well. Brighton had a couple of other chances too, nothing groundbreaking, but were generally dominant. It'll frustrate them to give away 2 points from a set piece. Firstly, record signing Emil Smith Rowe, who was dropped for teenager Josh King, showed eagerness to earn his way back into the squad by driving forward, and he earned that corner. It went deep to Muniz, another who wants to earn his way off the bench, who showed good strength to break free of marker James Milner. Milner has to be stronger there, but Muniz's finish was so aesthetically pleasing, finding the only place in a crowded box to rifle it in. Fulham are no mugs and defend well, with only a silly tackle costing them a clean sheet in the end. But Brighton dominated the game, and with all the attacking talent at their disposal, such as Mitoma, Ruta, and Minte, they will feel like they could have put the game to bed. Another case of a missing striker, this time Joao Pedro, who has been sold to Chelsea, affecting matters. You could easily say that. Fulham were rewarded for their resilience, though, to give a hammer blow to the home fans in Falmer. Next up, Sunderland returned to the Premier League to face West Ham. The Black Cats lined up as expected, while West Ham had Guido Rodriguez start instead of Freddie Potts, leading to a 3-4-1-2 with Lucas Paquetá playing slightly ahead. Also, Mads Hermansen was preferred to Alphonse Areola in goal. Early on, Jared Bowen drove forward but had to take it outside and earned a save from Robin Roves. A smart pass from Eliezer Mayenda found Habib Diarra, and it was a huge chance earning a save from Hermansen. An early chance for El Malik Hadji Diouf was stopped by a sliding block from Dan Ballard. Sub Omar Alderete came on in the second half for his debut, and a cross found Eliezer Mayenda. The header wasn't powerful, but it was placed, and Hermansen scampered but couldn't keep it out. Another cross, this time by Simon Adingra, found Ballard, and the same result. West Ham had an aerial chance of their own, but Callum Wilson's header was tipped over by Roofs. But their humiliation was completed when, from their own injury time corner, Sunderland hit them on the break. Subs Wilson Isidore was in acres of space and went from it himself, cutting inside and finding the bottom corner. It finished with the eye-catching scoreline of 3-0 to Sunderland. Wow, what a magical return for Sunderland. In 2017, they were relegated, and most thought they'd find their way back relatively soon, but then they went down another division. Years later, they're finally back in the promised land. The conventional wisdom, one which I agree with, is that life is very tough for promoted teams these days. But West Ham decided to make it as easy for them as possible. I think they were badly let down by their goalkeeper, Mads Hermansen. Hermansen was bought from Leicester for £20 million, but shifted his weight on his wrong side for the first goal, and though I don't really blame him for the second, the third probably shouldn't have been allowed to go in either. Most post-shot XG, post-shot mind you, had him responsible for at least just over a goal. I did wonder whether he would start immediately or be there in the long term to replace Alphonse Areola eventually, who is 32, but Graham Potter has gone with Hermansen. What's remarkable about the stat is that Hermansen didn't drop a clanger, pass it straight to an opponent, or anything like that. He was just bad at saving shots. Goalie aside, though, West Ham also didn't create much away to a promoted side, who ended up getting a clean sheet. I thought predicting them to come 16th was a bit insulting, but blimey, I think many of their fans would take that right now. As for Sunderland, don't get ahead of yourselves just yet. It's a long season ahead, and you won't have the opposing goalie responsible for at least a free goal all the time. I think they'll get a reality check pretty soon, but enjoy it for now, and of course, it is a great thing to build on. Spurs started their season at home to another promoted side in Burnley. Unlike the 4-2-3-1 I predicted, Thomas Frank went for a 4-3-3 with Archie Gray starting instead of Rodrigo Bentancur. Burnley had two changes from my predictions. Martin Dubravka was ready to start in goal instead of Max Weiss, but Josh Laurent started ahead of Leslie Ugachukwu. As predicted, it was a 5-4-1 with Oliver Sonner starting at right back. Very early on, Lucas Bergvall had an attempt, but he was stretching for it, and Dubravka got a save. Then a Mohamed Kudus cross found Richarlison in space near the penalty spot, and the Brazilian gave Spurs the lead. Burnley had a half chance, but Laurent put it wide. A Kyle Walker cross was aimed at Jadon Anthony. It was never going to find him, but Pedro Porro's barge off the ball still led to penalty shouts. Not given. In the second half, Richarlison was again found in space, but his first effort was blocked by Maxime Esteve and his second saved by Dubravka. Lyle Foster had the ball in the Spurs box, and what was meant to be a shot on the turn actually found Anthony. Anthony got a shot away, but it was easily saved by Guglielmo Vicario. Burnley's hopes ended when Kudus dropped his shoulder to get away from Quilinci Hartman and find Richarlison in space, and the latter got his brace with an acrobatic effort which rifled into the net. Finally, Pat Matar Sarr played through Brennan Johnson, and the Welshman slotted it past Dubravka to wrap up a 3-0 win. Really enjoyable stuff for Spurs fans. Many people think that the switch from Ange Postecoglou to Thomas Frank was giving up positivity for pragmatism. But this is not necessarily the fairest thing to say to Frank. Even though his sides have been resilient and Spurs have gotten their first clean sheet in 13 league matches, Brentford under Frank had often been exciting when the opposition allowed. The expectation was that, with James Maddison out, Frank would deploy Sarr as a temporary 10 before reinforcement came, and then use two sixes as he did in the Super Cup. Instead, he took the bold call of not using Rodrigo Bentancur or Joao Palhinha, instead trusting youngsters Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall as eights alongside Sarr. The duo are more attacking, and it showed. But the real joy was the front three. I wasn't sure about Kudus, but on this occasion he was fantastic, setting up two assists, twice finding Richarlison in space. I think Richarlison could be a defining part of the Frank project. The Brazilian is at his best when he is the main man in terms of style of play and also character, being a man who loves the limelight, famously doing keepy-uppies on the pitch. He was beloved at Everton for both reasons. He loved to score goals and was also larger than life, but at Spurs he has been just all right, with only one double-figure season. Frank has made a star of several number nines at Brentford, first Ollie Watkins, then Ivan Toney, and even after Toney left, he got the best out of Brian Mbermo and Yoane Wissa. Dominic Solanke is coming back from injury, but you do wonder if Spurs should just let Richarlison have a decent run of games to see if he can keep up a good rhythm. He won't be playing Burnley every week, but he linked up so well with Kudus and Johnson, who also played well, so why not? As for Burnley, it looks like a long old season. New signings like Leslie Ugachukwu and Armando Broja aren't ready, but when the team news was released, the jokes came pouring in on social media. Predictions they'd come 21st and would finish under the table. I don't think they were that bad, especially between the first and second goal. They lost Richarlison one time too many and got punished for it, though, and going forward, they were very limited. It still remains very unclear where the points that keep them in the division come from. Their forays forwards, when they did come, amounted to nothing. Scott Parker has a lot of thinking to do if he's going to figure out how to keep a team like this up. In the half-5 game, Wolves hosted Man City. For Wolves, though I got the formation right, new signings Fer Lopez and John Arias only made the bench. Instead, Marshall Monetzi started on the right and John Rickman Bellegarde on the left. For City, James Trafford was preferred to Ederson in goal, and John Stones played over Manuel Akanji. Rico Lewis started ahead of Mateus Nunes, while Nico Gonzalez got the nod over Ilkay Gundogan. And the lineup was less a 4-3-2-1 and more of a 4-3-3, with Oscar Bob on the right instead of Ryan Cherky. It's impossible to predict Pep Guardiola, though.
The first chance came when Bernardo Silva put a cross in and Erling Haaland had an open goal if he could get a clean head to it, but it was just a bit awkward for the stretching Norwegian. Tiani Reinders dinked it over the top to Lewis, whose cutback found Haaland, who had a tap in for the lead. Bob pounced on a loose ball and City had a counter. He picked out Reinders, who smashed it into the bottom corner. In the second half, Kiana Hova found Jurgen Strand Larsen in the box, but the Norwegian put it just wide. A smart free kick routine gave Strand Larsen another chance, which Trafford had to tip over. Another great move by Reinders, driving forward and then pulling it back to Haaland, whose powerful effort and a hand from Jose Sarr, but still found its way in. Wolves did win the ball deep into City territory, and again Trafford was needed to stop a Strand Larsen effort. Wolves failed to deal with a City move, and a low, long-ranged effort from substitute Cherky was fired past Sarr. Well, that shut a lot of people up. Many people thought that this title fight was primarily between Liverpool and Arsenal, and that included me. But while we're not at Arsenal yet, Liverpool struggled to grind out a win at home, while Man City absolutely destroyed Wolves. Though they were a 4-3-3, the fullbacks were so far forward and the wingers so wide that it was clear that Erling Haaland was the main focal point, with some even calling it a 2-3-4-1 formation. This let the rest of the team overrun the midfield, but at first Wolves were doing quite well keeping them out. Enter Tiani Reinders. The £46.3 million Milan signing probably wasn't the most well known in England, but nobody has had their profile raised by the opening week like him. He ghosted through Wolves' defence on several occasions and had the number 10's equivalent of a perfect hat trick, a pre-assist, an assist, and a goal for himself, all by his own brilliance. Wolves' game plan was to try and frustrate City, but it only works for about half an hour. City looked lost last season without Rodri, but didn't have him today either. The response was, instead of trying to control possession, to be direct and make the most of it when they had it, getting the best out of Erling Haaland. And he scored 2 goals. This was such a mismatch, though, that it's too early to say what it means for both teams. Wolves will have easier games than City. City will have tougher challenges than Wolves. Like at Anfield, this day will also be remembered for Wolves' memorial of Diogo Jota. On to Sunday then, as Chelsea met Crystal Palace. I got 10 Chelsea players right, but the one that didn't start was not Trevor Chalobah, but Tosin Adarabioyo, and his replacement wasn't Wesley Fofana, but Josh Achiampong. As for Palace, I got all correct. An early corner led to a looping header by Mark Cucurella that needed to be cleared off the line by Ismail Assar. Eberechi Eze smashed home a free kick. However, it was disallowed due to Mark Gay being too close to the wall. A through ball from Adam Wharton found Jean-Philippe Mateta, but the Frenchman's effort was straight to Robert Sanchez. In the second half, some good skill by Estevao allowed him to put in a cross, but Pedro Neto's head couldn't meet it cleanly. The Brazilian then had the ball in the box, but decided to shoot, snatching at it and firing over. In injury time, it fell to Andre Santos in space in the penalty area, but he fired over. No goals in West London. So let's get the VAR decision out of the way. The rules are the rules. Everyone who plays knows or should know the rules, and the decision was given in accordance with them. Every analysis of the situation should focus on that, and maybe blame Gay for getting too close to the wall. But there is no doubt about the laws of the game. I'm not saying anything else. Chelsea set up interestingly with their back four looking more like a back three in possession due to Marc Cucurella advancing into midfield. Chelsea also had the most possession of any team this week with 71.5%. In the first half, they struggled to make chances and were very predictable, playing side to side, leading to some grumbles and moaning in the crowd. Crystal Palace used a back three and could just stand on the edge of the box, blocking them from getting through. Thus, Chelsea experimented with some of their new young signings, such as the Brazilian pair of Estevao and Andre Santos, as well as Liam Delap. Their attacking play was much better, but they failed to look clinical in front of goal, with chances going wanting. Enzo Maresca has invested heavily, and with all the tools at his disposal, there was definitely a team in there that could have scored a goal against even a dogged Crystal Palace. But he didn't find it, and putting that jigsaw together is what his job will be over the next few months. For Palace, they will feel unlucky not to have won after the goal was chalked off, but it was a dogged defensive performance. It confirmed what we already knew. Chelsea are good, but not consistent enough to challenge the top three over 38 games, while Palace are a stubborn mid table side that are annoying to face, but perhaps no more than that. In the other 2 p.m. game, Nottingham Forest hosted Brentford. I got the Forest team spot on, but Brentford had some surprises. Matthias Jensen started over Jordan Henderson, while Anthony Milambo was used over Mikhail Damsgaard. I was right that Rico Henry would be preferred to Aaron Hickey. Huimin Kelleher was used over Hakon Valdimarsson, and Keen Lewis Potter was selected over Kevin Schade. Early on, a corner wasn't dealt with and fell to Chris Wood, who poked it past Kelleher for the opener. Henry beat Danendoy and cut back to Jensen, who disguised a pass straight to Igor Thiago, but Neco Williams got in the way of the shot. A lofted through ball by Morgan Gibbs-White found Ndoye, who was being played onside by Nathan Collins, whose acrobatic header beat Kelleher for 2-0. In injury time, a loose ball by Sepp van den Berg was pounced upon by Elliot Anderson, who hit a first-time through ball to Wood, who rounded Kelleher and tapped it in. In the second half, Callum Hudson-Odoi went down the left wing, but an overhead kick by Gibbs-White went over. In a crowded box following a Brentford corner, Ibrahim Songare handled the ball. Thiago put it down the middle and it beat Matt Sells, but it wasn't enough to save them. 3-1. Forest were dominant, and their 54.8% possession would have been their second best in the whole of last season. They won the physical battle, and that will disappoint Brentford. The Bees have a reputation for being plucky underdogs, but to achieve that, you have to be up for it, winning 50-50s. However, Brentford only took 44.1% of duels and only 40.6% of aerial duels. This allowed Forest to have enough of the ball to create chances, and the mistake for the third goal didn't help matters. The only positive I can take is that Rico Henry, who missed most of last season with injury, looked back to his old self and was causing problems down the left, where Brentford focused most of their attacking play. It just wasn't enough, and on Sunday's evidence, some of the worst predictions for Brentford might be reasonable. In the 4:30 kickoff, Man United hosted Arsenal. For United, Diogo Dalot started at right wing-back rather than Amad Diallo. Bruno Fernandes played as a number 8 instead of Manuel Ugarte, with Mason Mount taking Fernandes' expected role as a 10. I was correct that Altay Bayindir would be selected ahead of Andre Onana in goal. For Arsenal, one difference, Ricardo Calafiori was picked over Miles Lewis-Skelly. Arsenal took the lead when a Declan Rice corner was flapped at by Bayindir and Calafiori headed in. Patrick Dorgu went on a run down the left and hit the post from distance. Mateus Cunha's own run carved open the Arsenal defence, but his shot was weakly hit at David Raya. Mason Mount found Cunha, but again the Brazilian's effort was saved. In the second half, an acrobatic effort by Brian Mbeumo was put wide. A Dorgu cross then found Mbeumo, but his low header was saved by Raya. The ball stayed in, but another aerial ball for Benjamin Šeško was headed wide. Matthias de Ligt found Cunha in the box, and though William Saliba tangled with him, no foul was given and the ball was cleared. Arsenal held on for a 1-0 win. Yes, the only Arsenal highlight was their goal. They were peppered in this game and can take genuine joy from the way they withstood the all-new United attack. What they won't enjoy is the underlying stats from their win. United had 61% of the ball and 22 shots. Only once had Arsenal given that up in the league in the entirety of the last 3 seasons. They have an excellent defence in Gabriel Magalhaes and William Saliba, and there were 2 brilliant saves from Raya. United caught them often with long balls, relying on Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount to find Brian Mbeumo. Patrick Dorgu and Diogo Dalot often got on the end of them too, while Mateus Cunha would also carry the ball up the pitch. However, though United penetrated the box, Arsenal's low block was also able to deal with them. Benjamin Šeško only got 25 minutes, but United will want to see more from him. And though Mbeumo in particular often got in good positions, once he was there, he often found an empty box, especially before Šeško came on. The price for that was that the midfield was lacking defensively, a similar issue to Liverpool, making them vulnerable on the break. Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro will be punished in future games by teams that are more used to playing on the counter-attack. Let's talk about Arsenal now, who got away with one. Under Mikel Arteta, they have liked to control things, and in the last few years, not really used a proper number 9, with Kai Havertz, Gabriel Jesus, and even defensive midfielder Mikel Merino lining up at centre forward. Many thought that a number 9 was the missing piece, but Arsenal looked much worse with Victor Gyökeres. The other attacking players tried to force things to the Swede, but this led to their lowest pass completion rate since last season's September match away to Man City, where they played the second half with 10 men. The real difference, if they want to unlock Gyökeres, will be that final ball. Martin Ødegaard, Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli have to get that right. So do the other midfielders, such as Declan Rice and Martin Zubimendi. On his debut, Zubimendi was negative, perhaps nervous, playing the ball sideways instead of trying to pass it forward. The Gunners need to make use of Gyökeres, who had no shots or chances created, and just 4 completed passes. Mikel Arteta looked desperate to take him off, and the second the clock struck 60, that's exactly what he did. Kai Havertz replaced him, and Arsenal looked so much better. They had a couple of chances, and also Havertz's hold-up play, taking the ball down, keeping possession, slowing down the game, and near the end, taking it to the corner was just what the doctor ordered. It was classic Arsenal under Arteta against a big team. Overall, United looked like a marked improvement on last season, while Arteta still needs to tinker to find the right system. Stay tuned. Finally, on Monday night, Leeds hosted Everton. Leeds lined up as expected, while Everton were a 4-2-3-1. James Garner moved to left back instead of Adam Asnu, while Timiro Egbenam joined Idrissa Gueye as a 6 and Kieran Dewsbury Hall was the 10. A through ball by Wilfred Gnonto was played on via the boots of James Tarkowski to Joel Pirro, but Jordan Pickford made himself big to make the save. A cross headed on by Anton Stack found Daniel James, but he snatched at his shot. A Gnonto effort from about 20 metres out went over the bar. In the second half, James found Gnonto, but the Italian hit the side netting. Dewsbury Hall found Carlos Alcaraz in space, who forced a save from Lucas Perry. From the corner, Jake O'Brien headed over. Everton failed to deal with the ball, and it found its way to Ao Tanaka, who fired over the bar. A Jack Harrison cross came to James Tarkowski, who headed it away as far as Anton Stack. Stack's shot hit Tarkowski on the arm, leading to a penalty. Up stepped sub Lucas Nemecha, who put it out of reach for Pickford to give Leeds the 1-0 win. A fantastic result for Leeds, who took their chance. Again, let's just get that penalty decision out of the way now. I think it probably was one because of how he moved his body, but I can see how someone would say it isn't. That's it on the controversy. Anyway, the game itself and Leeds pressed with intensity and were rewarded with dominance in the match. They didn't create too much, but were rewarded with a bit of luck, and Nemecha took his chance. This is exactly what you want to see with Leeds. Staying up won't be easy, but they have to be up for it, and boy were they up for it. Lively, energetic, dominating the ball. I really like the energy of Anton Stack and Ao Tanaka in midfield, while Gnonto was very lively on the wing. Stack had 86 touches in the final third. Even though their goal was late, Leeds were stronger in the first half, getting 62.8 possession and not giving Everton a single shot. But the Toffees were into it more in the even second half. I do wonder if Leeds will be able to keep up their pressing game for 90 minutes in the future. Everton had a few ideas going forward, although Jack Grealish looked sharp off the bench. I think the Toffees will still need to bring some players in. Okay, so I didn't get any exact scores. I did predict Liverpool to win, but I went for 3-0 rather than the end-to-end game we got. I thought Villa would get a 1-0 win, but the red card ended any hope of that. At the Amex, I thought Brighton would win 2-1, but their finishing touch deserted them. I didn't foresee Sunderland's 3-0 win coming, instead thinking they'd lose 2-0, surely the biggest shock of the weekend. I thought Spurs would win, but went for 2-0 instead of 3-0, and I did foresee City's big win, but went for 3-0, not 4-0. I thought Chelsea would win 2-1, and they probably should have, but like Brighton, lacked a finishing touch. I got Forest winning right, but thought it would be more like 1-0 than 3-1. I also saw Arsenal's narrow win, but went for 2-1 rather than 1-0. I thought Everton would hold Leeds to a 0-0 draw, but instead their late penalty proved me wrong. So I got half the results right, but none of the scores. Let's end it with a quick fire of all the confirmed transfers and gossip. Arsenal have extended the contract of academy player Ismail Kabia. Gunners are strongly linked with Crystal Palace star Eberechi Eze, having intensified their move for the England international due to an injury to Kai Havertz. Aston Villa have sold Jacob Ramsey to Newcastle for £39 million. Former England under-21 international Ramsey broke into the Villa first team in the 2021 season and has been a regular player ever since for them, playing 45 times last season. Leander Dendoncker goes to Real Oviedo for an undisclosed fee after spending last season on loan at Anderlecht, and the 6 months before that at Napoli, having been completely frozen out of Villa. Leon Bailey played 38 times last season, but often off the bench, and has been loaned to Roma, showing that Unai Emery thinks there is no future at Villa Park for the Jamaica international. Bournemouth have made two big signings in the week just gone. Ben Doak played 10 times for Liverpool, but impressed on loan at Championship Middlesbrough last season, and has 6 Scotland caps. That was enough for the Cherries to buy him for £25 million, with the 19-year-old winger highly rated for the future. Amin Adli comes in from Bayer Leverkusen for £25.1 million. A Toulouse Academy graduate that saw his minutes rise after the side were relegated to Ligue 2 in 2020, Adli signed for Leverkusen in 2021. In the 4 seasons there, he was often used, if not a first-choice starter, and also has 15 caps for Morocco. He can play on the left wing. Going out is right winger Dango Ouattara, sold to Brentford for £42.5 million. Ouattara was a regular starter for Bournemouth since signing in January 2023 from Lorient in France. He scored 9 goals last season for the Cherries and also has 10 goals in 30 games for Burkina Faso. Bournemouth clearly felt the fee was enough to release him. Youth player Carlos Gregory is loaned to Sholin. Brentford's big signing is Dango Ouattara from Bournemouth for £42.5 million, who we just talked about. He'll look to strengthen their attacking options. Meanwhile, teenage left-back Jayden Magoma, who has 4 appearances for the Bees,
is sent on loan to Rangers, looking to develop after the last half season with Preston. The Johan Wissa story continues apace, with Wissa unhappy. It was felt that Brentford would let him go once they signed his replacement, and Wissa sees Ouattara as just that. Wissa's next move was to delete all mention of Brentford from his social media. However, Newcastle's next bid of £35 million plus £5 million in add-ons was seen as falling short. Brighton don't have any moves to talk about, but Julio Enciso, who spent the second half of last season on loan at Ipswich, is linked to Strasbourg. The idea is that he will sign for them before a future move to their sister club Chelsea. Burnley have loaned out academy player Oluwaseun Adewumi to Cercle Bruges, but otherwise are quiet on the transfer front. Chelsea have no new transfers, but are expected to sell midfielder Renato Vega, who spent the second half of last season on loan at Juventus, to Villarreal. Also, as stated, 21-year-old Julio Enciso will join sister club Strasbourg from Brighton and is expected to go to Chelsea after a year in France. Crystal Palace have signed young goalie Harry Lee on a free from Exeter. Lee had 6 games for the Grecians, but spent most of his career on loan to clubs in the 7th tier Southern League Premier Division South, with Plymouth Parkway and Dorchester being his clubs last season for a month each. His contract in Devon ended this summer, so Palace picked him up for nothing. Both Eberechi Eze and Mark Gay were linked with a move away from Selhurst Park, but Oliver Glasner was adamant that they would start Thursday's Conference League clash with Fredrikstad. In fact, only Gay was on the team sheet, with Arsenal having moved quickly to get Eze, beating out a move from Spurs. Gay remains linked with Liverpool. Everton have added Wolves goalie Tom King, who played just once since signing for the Old Gold in 2023, for an undisclosed sum. King has one Wales cap, but was always a backup at Molineux and will be here too. Ruben Gorka also joins the academy. Francis Okoronkwo, who spent last season on loan at Salford, takes a step up to Lincoln on loan, with Martin Sheriff also joining League One Rotherham. Neither have a senior game for the Toffees. No new news for Fulham, who have tenuous links but nothing concrete. Leeds signed Dominic Calvert-Lewin on a free from Everton. Since signing for Sheffield United in 2016, he managed 71 goals in 273 games for the Toffees, but let his contract run out after he was relegated to the bench last season behind Beto. He also has 4 goals in 11 games for England. Fellow forward Noah Okafor joins from Milan for an undisclosed fee. Okafor shone with Red Bull Salzburg before joining Milan in 2023. His first season was strong, but in his second, his time reduced, spending the second half of the season on loan with Napoli, with whom he only played 4 games. He has 24 Switzerland caps and is seen as a coup for the Whites in attacking areas. Meanwhile, Ethan Ampadu is out for the next couple of games with an injury. Liverpool have signed centre-back Giovanni Leone for £26 million. He spent last season with Parma in Serie A, for whom he played 17 times, seen as real potential at just 18. As previously stated, Ben Doak is sold to Bournemouth for £20 million, potentially rising to £25 million. Newcastle's Alexander Isak is still linked with the Reds, who had a £110 million bid rejected. Isak says promises have been broken, but the club insists that no such thing has happened, and he remains under contract. Any deal would probably depend on Newcastle plugging the gap up front, with 2 signings needed to replace Isak and Callum Wilson. Also, Jeremy Frimpong is out for the next 2 games with a hamstring issue. Man City have sold James McAtee to Nottingham Forest for £30 million. Former England under-21 international McAtee played 27 times and scored 7 goals for City last season, but mostly as a rotation player, having spent the previous 2 on loan at Sheffield United. The midfielder is seen to have great potential at just 22 years of age. 2 players have been loaned out, with new signings Fiera Nipan, sent to Championship Middlesbrough, and Claudio Echeverri, who played just 3 times last season after signing from River Plate, sent to Bayer Leverkusen in the Bundesliga. Centre-back Callum Doyle is expected to be sold to Wrexham for about £8 million. For Man United, youngster Toby Collier joins Championship West Brom on loan after making 13 appearances last season. AC Milan confirmed interest in loan for Rasmus Højlund, but Bayer Leverkusen's Victor Boniface looks like he will go instead, putting cold water over that. Harry Maguire confirmed interest but said that the club's blocked any move made for him. Newcastle, as mentioned, signed Jacob Ramsey from Aston Villa for £43 million, a badly needed boost up front, but the main focus has been on the dual dramas, trying to get Johan Wissa in while Alexander Isak wants out. Brentford have rejected their bid for Wissa, whilst it is seen as possible that Isak could theoretically be reintegrated into the squad if they hold on to him. Nottingham Forest have been busy buying attacking midfielder Amari Hutchinson for £37.5 million from Ipswich. Hutchinson spent the 23-24 on loan with the Tractor Boys from Chelsea, scoring 11 in 50, and then signed on a permanent after they were promoted to the Premier League, playing another 32 games. He also has 2 Jamaica caps, but defected to England under-21s, being just 21 himself. As previously noted, they also signed highly rated number 10 James McAtee from Manchester City for £30 million, bolstering their creative options. Up front, Arnold Kalimwendo joined from Rennes for £26 million.
Callum Wendo was never used at PSG, but after two successful loans to Lens, for Rennes in 2022. Last season, he scored 18 goals for the Ligue 1 side and also has played for France at youth level, including at the Paris Olympics. Forest have added, and their boost in options is exciting, but also let some players go. Carlos Miguel played just 3 times since signing in 2024 and is sold to Palmeiras for £5.2 million. Marco Stamanic also signed last summer, was instantly loaned to Olympiacos but was peripheral there, so Forest decided to sell him to Swansea for £2 million. Youth player Isapa Asong is loaned to Motherwell. Sunderland have signed Nordi Mukiele from PSG. The right back went to the French capital from RB Leipzig in 2022, but was a rotation player and spent last season on loan at Bayer Leverkusen. Even there, Mukiele, who has one France cap, was a rotation option, and after returning, PSG have sold him for £12 million. I think that's a really canny buy for Sunderland. Young winner Reece Welsh joins 6th tier South Shields on a 1-month loan. Sunderland are also interested in Leicester's Abdul Fatawu, with the winger valued at about £30 million by the Championship side. Spurs were happy to tie both Jed Spence and Christian Romero to long-term contracts, with both highly rated in North London. However, Spurs have been said to be stunned to have lost out on Crystal Palace's Eberechi Eze to Arsenal, the second time this has happened after nearly getting Morgan Gibbs-White too, with Gibb-White instead signing a new contract. However, Eze preferred Arsenal, so even with the money ready, there was nothing Tottenham could do. West Ham have done absolutely nothing, and that will concern their fans after Saturday. Finally, Wolves have signed Jackson Chachua from Hellas Verona for £10.8 million. Chachua moved to Italy on loan in 2023 from Charleroi in Belgium, and then went on a permanent the season after. In those two spells, he played 64 times for the Venetian side. And the 23-year-old right back, known for his speed, has 10 Cameroon caps. I think this is a really important deal for them as they needed to replace Nelson Semedo and could help them stay up. As previously stated, surplus to requirements goalie Tom King joined Everton for an undisclosed sum. So that's it. I'll be back with the Match Week 2 previews next. Thanks for listening.